Hey Springfield, my name is Aaron Clark, and what you're about to watch are stories designed to create compassion, care, and love for one another in our community. We all have a story, we all have history, we all have an authentic story, and with that comes good, bad, and the ugly. But when we know each other's stories, when we hear each other's stories, it gives us the capacity to show more compassion and love for one another. So let's check out a video of an authentic story from one of your neighbors. Welcome to another episode of Springfield Stories. Share your name.
My name is Louie Ortega.
Louie Ortega, how long you been here in Springfield?
Springfield, I've been here since 2010. I moved here about 12 years ago with my wife. She's originally from here, from here, St. Paris, Urbana area.
So you moved here. So share with us your childhood, your upbringing. What got you to Springfield?
Yeah, so I grew up in El Paso, Texas. Grew up in a Hispanic Mexican household. You know, so some of the best food, Aaron, as you know. I went to Catholic school there in Texas. Really was exposed to Catholicism and the Lord early, and had a great childhood. It was hard, you know. We had didn't have everything growing up, but I was provided for, and I had great loving parents. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. My brother's 31, my sister's 28. So really got close to them, and still obviously talk to them. They all still live in Texas. Went to an all-boys high school, Catholic high school. Learned a lot there, and actually had a high school sweetheart through that time. I played baseball there in Texas. I loved baseball when I was playing. A little bit of basketball too, you know, as a tall guy, that's almost the expectation. You know? But I just had a great time, you know, growing up in the desert. You know, the weather was different. I learned that when I got here, but like there, it would, you know, get kind of cool, kind of low, 40s maybe, you know. It was really cold. It was 40s. And then it snows here. I don't know if you know that. But, yeah, I had a great time. I graduated in 99 from all-boys school, went to college, University of Texas, El Paso, there in El Paso. Went for business for a short time, and then decided I wanted to go to culinary school. So I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. I went to the Le Cordon Bleu program there. So it's French training for being a chef. I did that for almost 2 years, was the program. So I have my associates in culinary arts. So I went to chef school during that time in Arizona. I had a great time. I learned a lot. I worked at a couple resort hotels. I got to cook for Mr. Marriott. I worked for Mr. Marriott for about 6 years.
Wow.
And in that time, I did get to cook for guys like Reggie Miller, basketball player,
Wow.
and then Garth Brooks and his road crew came during Country Thunder. Was one of the events that would happen in Arizona, and it was fun. I got to meet him, and Dave Chappelle I've got to meet, and Charlie Murphy before he passed, and just a lot of fun.
Wow.
And learning a lot about cooking and stuff like that. And then so I did that for a little while, hotels, and then I helped a friend of mine that was in culinary school with me. He was going to be the chef of a wine bar that was opening up, and he needed a sous chef, which would be like his assistant. Mm-hmm. So I did that for a couple of years, just had fun pairing wine with different food, and we would do wine dinners every month. So I'd write like a 5-course wine dinner to match with each wine. The winemaker would come, and we would taste the wine, match the food, and then sell tickets, you know.
Wow.
But it was fun, man. Like 25, 30 people every month. We'd do something different. And the winemaker would come from Napa Valley or wherever.
Wow.
And it was a blast. We had a great
Wow.
time. So yeah, that's kind of growing up through Texas into Arizona. And then I met my beautiful wife, Amanda, in Arizona. We actually met. I posted a profile on Yahoo Personals. Now, that was before eHarmony and all that, you know. And
I wonder if that's still out there.
I
Man.
don't know if that's still out there.
Let's see if there's an archive
I've
somewhere.
been married almost 16 years, so I don't use it, But we met. I remember meeting her for the first time at Four Peaks Brewery. It was a really cool brewery, and I mean they had pretty good beer, but they had really good food, which I remember. And yeah, I never believed this, but like it was slammed. It was like a Friday night. There was one table open, and when she walked in, I knew that was my wife, which was weird. I had heard that before, and I'm like, nah, I don't believe that. And then it happened. And I was like, oh my God, that's her. That's my wife. And we started dating, and then I asked her to marry me, and we got married in Sedona, Arizona, which is about 2 hours north of Phoenix. And it's beautiful. It actually gets cold there. And it's all like red sand, red rocks. So it's kind of a whole nother world, desert look, but it looks very cool. And we got married there, and we ended up moving back to Springfield. I will be honest, the first couple of years, I hated it here. Because it snowed, it was icy. I remember falling on the ice, and I was like, just laying there like, I don't know if I can do this.
Springfield is different.
I know. It was, once I got through the weather and just kind of getting cold or whatever, I got over it. But I really fell in love with the city, and I wanted to see it grow and just do better than it was. It wasn't horrible or anything like that, but I wanted to see it flourish and just people's dreams and visions for it come to fruition. And that took some time. It's probably, I would say it's still not quite all the way there, developed, but it's slowly moving, and there's been some good things happening, especially downtown, and some progression in different areas of the city even. So yeah, it's been awesome, man.
Man, one thing, man. I think Springfield or Ohio, rather, if you could survive Ohio weather, man, I think you could survive pretty much anything, man. I think just the past couple of weeks, man, you could go from snow one day to rain to sunny to spring back to snow. I mean, all within like a week time, man.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to dress for the day. You don't know how to, it's just. But I love it, man. I'm born and raised here. I love it, man. I love Springfield.
Yeah.
Hey, going back to your child, you went to all boys school.
Yeah.
Man, what was that experience like?
That was interesting. I don't know if I recommend that for everybody. Because it kind of feels like boys can be boys, whatever that means. I had some really close friends, just growing up, and I don't feel like girls were a distraction or anything. Not that that's true or anything, but going in all boys school, I don't know, I got very close to other men, and we all it was a Catholic school. We grew into God a little bit together and learned about that. And not everybody, there were other guys kind of questioning some things and questioning faith, which is totally fine. But I had some great relationships there, and I could really depend on my buddies. And I played baseball there for a short time too, and just really got into people's lives, which was a great opportunity.
What challenges do you think you had to go through from being at an all boys school? I mean, what are some of the challenges with that?
There was an all boys school, and then there was an all girls school, and I would probably maybe thinking back some of the challenges maybe socially, because they'd host like dances and stuff and invite the all girls school to come, and we'd meet, and it was kind of usually there's some teenage awkwardness in a dance, but it seemed to be even more heightened at that time, just because we haven't talked to any girls at all. There's none around,
Right.
So I would say probably that, maybe just learning how to do that, maybe just learning how to do that well, not trying to be a Casanova or anything, but just talking to them, There was probably just an element of fear, even I would say that's probably the biggest thing, but it was a great experience. And even going through school, we were able to really connect on different subjects too. Like, hey man, I really need help. If you're good at algebra and I'm good at history, let's hang out and talk about that because we can help each other out. And there was a lot of that. We could really just kind of team up on stuff.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. What was your dad? You say you had a brother and a sister.
Yeah. Yeah. So growing up, that was hard. My brother is 9 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. So they were both born with they call it craniofacial synostosis. So it's kind of in between Down syndrome and I'm not sure if there's another level, but so basically their soft spot had closed too soon when they were babies. And they had surgery for that. At the time, this was like early 90s, so at the time it was still very new. And I remember my parents had to go to Dallas, Texas with my brother. He was born first, and that was just kind of an odd genetic thing that had happened because he wasn't Down syndrome or would be considered retarded or anything like that. So they did the surgery and he's fine. I remember in the beginning, he kind of had like some learning disabilities and at first, and I mean now he's very smart. But that was tough going through that a little bit as a kid. It was really hard to watch my parents they always had to be with him, so I was with like an aunt and uncle for a good part of the school year.
Yeah,
So.
I was going to ask that you just said that them focusing on that, man, did that pull you away?
Yeah.
Did you feel did you feel left out? Did you feel like how did that as a child, man?
As a child, I kind of felt as a 9-year-old, I kind of felt like I had to grow up earlier than maybe I was supposed to, because I was feeding my brother. I'd heat up the milk, and I learned how to change his diaper just to help out my mom, because my mom didn't work for probably a couple years, and she was raising him and taking care of me, and he had just a little bit. He needed a little bit more attention, and I remember he had to wear like a special helmet for his head too, and people in the grocery store would ask questions or stuff like that, or I don't remember people really making negative comments, which is great. But yeah, I had to. I mean, I was babysitting him. I would take care of him. I love him. I loved him very much, and I still do. But it was, I don't know. I felt like I kind of grew up fast.
Yeah.
Learning how to do all that stuff at like 9.
Did you, sometimes I hear people who say they had to grow up fast, so they felt like they missed out on like a regular childhood.
Yeah.
I think they had to be almost an adult at the age of 9, 10 with other siblings. Do you feel like that, man? That looking back at it, like, man, I missed out on some childhood stuff, or you feel like it was well balanced?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know exactly. What I would have missed out on, but maybe a little bit. Where I kind of felt like and my parents didn't push that or anything. I think it was more like I just saw the situation and felt like I kind of had to grow up and help out.
Right.
I got to help and contribute. Maybe I did, maybe not as many sleepovers, trips, you would take with a kid, but I don't know. I don't have any regrets either, where I'm kind of sad about it or anything. I feel like I needed that part of my life to happen. So
what was done when your sister came? What was that dynamic like? So
that was interesting because we now had a little girl. God, I could not stand her. She was a pain in the butt. She was awful in the beginning because she's this little girl, and I was already, this is a few years later, so I'm 13. I'm cool, cooler than anybody. But that was a hard dynamic too, because she had a little bit of the same thing, but maybe not as extreme as he did. And I don't know. I think she just being the baby. I kind of feel. Maybe I got jealous a little bit because she took the attention away. I'm like, I'm doing so well, I'm taking care of my brother, doing all this stuff, and now here comes this baby girl, and she's stealing every attention that I want, So, there's a little bit of immaturity in that, but God, I'm so close to her too now, just I can't imagine life without her.
Wow.
But it was, we joke about that too, I was like, man, I didn't like you when we were growing up. I love you. I loved you. I knew I had to, but I didn't like you growing up. No, she's the best. I hope to see her pretty soon. She's talking about maybe moving here. She helped me when we initially started our food truck, which we can talk about in a little bit. But she moved here for about 1.5 years, and she would take orders for me, and I would cook. And then she moved back to El Paso. But talking about maybe coming back, that'd be great.
Man, growing up in El Paso, like, what was the? I've never been.
Yeah.
You know, so how would you describe El Paso, Texas? Like,
when I was there, it's very different now. But when I was there, it's a Hispanic Mexican community. So those were the people that I saw. Like in high school, I had, as far as like color, race, I never really noticed until like I was in high school. It's like, oh, I had white friends, I had black friends, but there were not as many because it's primarily Hispanic community. El Paso is a great place. Lots of Mexican food everywhere. It was safe. It was really cool to grow up there. I learned a lot about. We would go to the desert. You know, when I was a kid, when there was a desert, you could go out and shoot targets or just walk around, have a fire out there. And I really enjoyed that. And growing up there, the weather was not. I mean, it was hot in the summer. You know, it's over 100. Right. But it was great. We had great holidays, good family time, which I really enjoyed. Now it's really expanded and grown quite a bit. So like if you try to drive out to the desert, you're going to make it almost to New Mexico before you see anything because there's just so much development. And particularly where I'm from, in El Paso, there's actually an Army base called Fort Bliss. So there's also a large military community. It's one of the largest bases in the country. And they use it to train soldiers that are going to Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia because of the climate. So there's a huge military area that's fenced and stuff. And I remember I had a few friends that were kind of Army brats, as they would call themselves, and got close to them, and they'd have to, dad would or mom would get restationed, you know, somewhere else. And, but that's kind of the dynamic there that would make it pretty diversified. Now there's quite a bit of different types of restaurants. It's getting a little more on the trendy side of that too, which is cool to go and visit and see that. And and I used to see my family about once to twice a year, and then just between COVID and a couple of restrictions, I wasn't able to visit. So it's been a couple of years or so.
Yeah. And you're both your parents still
alive, still married. I get to speak to them pretty often. I try to call them at least 2 to 3 times a month. Sometimes it's hard, you know. I do have 4 kids. They're not little, not so little anymore, but and we try and do video with them, video calling with like my mom or my dad, just to catch up, see how they're doing and stuff. So
good deal, man. So now, you know, bring us up to. You said you moved to Arizona.
Yeah.
You know, and started cooking there, man. I want to hear more about, you know, that passion of being the chef. Did anybody else in your family? Are you the first chef in your family?
So I in high school I worked for my mom's mom. My grandma had a catering company. I did that for a little while. I would help out with different events, mostly like busing and helping here and there. I didn't really get to cook in the beginning, you know. So I would say she ran a cafeteria for a couple schools, and really most the person I identified with as a chef really first in the family. Always had good food from, you know, aunts, moms, cousins, but she would actually do it like on a professional level too, and I learned quite a bit from that, and then kind of decided later on that I wanted to go to culinary school. And kind of pursue this as a career, you know, and I learned a lot in French cooking, which is lots of butter and cream and, you know, old school techniques, which have done very well for me. I've learned a lot, and I really loved it, you know.
What man, I applaud you. You know, I believe cooking is an art, man. You got to have, you know, great cooks. Me, I got about 1 or 2 dishes that I can make, man, and I wouldn't start no restaurant on it. That's just that's just it, man. I'm not gonna share what I just figured out, man, because y'all be like, "Are you serious, bro?" Yeah. So I just leave that between me. But cooking, man, you know, I never really. Always felt it took too long.
Yeah.
You know, if you want patience, man, it takes patience to cook, man.
It does.
And I just felt like it took too long. So I was like, man, I'll let somebody else do it and I'll just eat. But, you know, but it's not a lot of people that goes into culinary. You know, most people, you know, young people want to do sports or athlete. You know, it's very few that wants to be a culinary, you know, chef. And I think that's amazing, man. So how did you... I want to back up, man. Then we're going to pick back up to the cooking, man, to where you are now, because you got the food truck and amazing food. Where you at now with the painted pepper.
Yeah.
But your wife, like you said, you met your wife and y'all got married in Arizona.
Yep.
What brought her to, because you said she was born in Springfield.
Yeah.
So what brought her to Arizona? And then what, just how did y'all how did that your marriage start, man? Like how did that just build, you know?
So she was here, and I remember her talking about that story. Like, she grew up here and just wanted to leave. She wanted to get out, do something else. And her grandmother lived in Phoenix, so she went to live with her, and she was going to Arizona State at the time for I always say philanthropy, but, you know, that's not true. Anthropology, I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
So anthropology. So wanted to be more of like a museum curator type job person to do that. And she was there a little while. I think she had been there probably about 7 years when I had met her, and I had been there maybe like 3 when I met her at the time. So, you know, she was living there doing school and then working at different places. I think she was delivering pizzas or working at a couple restaurants also, but not like into cooking the way I was. I remember I was going to culinary school, and then I had a job also. So, at culinary school, it started at 5:30 in the morning, and I'd go till 11:30, and then I had to go to my hotel job at 1, and work till 10, 11, and then sleep and do it all over again. I couldn't do that now, Aaron. Like, there's no way.
You don't have any,
I was in my 20s, so that was a blast. And I remember when we met, at the time, she had switched to online school. And, we started dating. We had really just started partying a little bit together. Nothing hardcore. We did drink quite a bit together, and again, nothing I want to do now. Just get 2-3 hours of sleep. Well, I got to go to work in a few hours, and we would do that for a little while, and then one day I remember her waking up and telling me like, I want to go back to church, and I was like, okay, sure. I had gone to Catholic church my whole life, and I was like, sure, let's do that. That's great. I can do that. We went to the Tempe Vineyard. I remember that. And the vineyard style is a lot of, hands up and praise and worship. And I hadn't really experienced that, because I remember going to church and it was, sit down, be quiet.
Right.
That's the way it is. Like, so this was like, what are all these people doing? And I got to tell you, man, that experience, we went to the vineyard for probably 3 years. And we met in a theater because they didn't have their own building. So in that first year, I think I was recruited to be a part of the setup team. So we're rolling in like, the big lights for the stage and the sound booth and everything. And I was a part of the setup team. So eventually they got me to take over the setup team. And that's when I started making like breakfast sandwiches or breakfast burritos for people as incentive, because they'd have to show up at 7:30 on Sunday morning. I'm like, how am I going to get you here? I'm going to feed you.
Hey, food.
So, she makes people show up. I don't care what time it is. So I'd have my team come like 7:30. Service started at 9, and that was a great experience. Got very close friends and really got close with the Lord, really would, even to a point where I was like praying for people, like laying hands on people is what we would call it. And I would see things which I had never believed at all. Like, that's not true, and I would see things like clear as day and tell them something, and they'd be like, nobody knows that. I'm like, well, God does. And it wasn't bad or good or whatever. It just, that was a great experience. And we did that for 3 years and just really got close to each other, got married. And it was wonderful. I mean, it was amazing. I credit my wife. She doesn't always agree, but I'm like, you really like brought me back. You brought me back to church. It just took, let's just go. And we just started going.
You say speaking on being a Christian and faith, you said, man, that you start to see things, and how was that normal in the Catholic world, like being able to lay hands and see things and share things with people or have visions or prophecy? That's probably what they would call it now, what we call it now. But
I would say no. And if it wasn't talked about. So there's nothing wrong with Catholicism. I remember it was a great experience, but it did feel like I was kind of going through the motions. We have to get up, we have to do this, pretend to enjoy the song. And that just wasn't, that's it. Well, I have to go, Sunday morning to do it. Where instead,
more like a check box.
Yeah, we were checking a box versus like when I started going to the vineyard, I was enjoying it. Like I look forward to going on Sunday, Yeah, I got killed on Saturday night with all these orders and we were cooking, we were busy. And in a few hours I get to go set this up and then worship, and I had a blast. There's a difference, and I really understood what the relationship piece of that is versus the obligation.
Yeah.
So no, none of that was kind of regular. And in the vineyard, it was talked about. Some of it was pretty regular. And yeah, I would see things which was odd to me, or see like, I don't even want to say a vision, but yeah, kind of like a prophecy of, that was very clear to me. So yeah.
Do you still do that now? Like, do God still give you things, man? Now?
Sometimes, yeah. Or I've heard God audibly before, which like once many years ago. But mostly I feel like a sense of what I'm hearing from him. He's spoken to me recently about people too, just or I want you to pray for this guy or something, and I'll do that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So now you're married, you're a chef, you're cooking for all these great people, man. So what comes next? Is there kids next, or do y'all move to Springfield? Do you get the food truck, or how?
So we were married, in 2006, and I was working at a fancy steakhouse called BLT Steak. It's called Bistro Laurent Turandel. The chef I worked for who started that restaurant, Laurent Turandel, he took down Bobby Flay in Iron Chef.
Oh, really?
So you can't, man, he's a French guy, and they did battle goat cheese. I'm like, come on, man. You can't give a French guy.
Doing like Iron Chef or something like that? I know that's just a question.
What's that?
Have you ever thought about doing like a cooking show, Iron Chef or something?
I've had friends like email me like the Chopped application. I've thought about it, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I have other things going on. like I don't know. Almost have time. Like I don't know. Like trying to be famous and do things have never been like my priority. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. But anyway, I got to work for him for a little while, and so we were married a little while, about 2.5 years, and then I remember my wife telling me she was pregnant with our first child, and it was Valentine's Day, 2009, and we were. She told me early in the morning, like 6 a.m., because I had to leave to go do I think it was like a culinary festival in Phoenix, and I had to be there at like 6:30. So I was leaving, and she, gives me a kiss, says goodbye. By the way, I'm pregnant. I'm like, so at first I was terrified, and then I was like, that's great. That's awesome. It was great news to me. I'm like this kind of nervous, scared, excited young father, and I thought for sure, I was like, I'm probably going to have a boy. That's what I thought. And then like I don't know if it was a couple weeks later, I remember having a dream, and I felt like God gave me this name, Ezekiel James. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to name the baby. And I remember our first sonogram we went to, and they asked us if we wanted to know the sex of the baby. And I was like, yeah, even though I'm full of pride, I know, God's got this connection, I know. And she says, it's a girl. And I was like, it's what? A girl? And I felt like in my spirit, I felt like God laughed, like, that's for your second one. And I was like, oh. You can't make plans with that. Right. And I was still overjoyed. I'm like, man, that's awesome. I have to think of a name now, but that's great. So we had a little girl first in Phoenix. She was born December 6th, 2009 in Phoenix, St. Joseph's Hospital, downtown Phoenix. And that was a kind of scary experience for me because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to go. All I had was movies. Like, as soon as, oh, my water broke, we have to rush to the hospital. That's not it. For anybody listening, watching, that's not how it goes. So it was cool to learn some things there. So we had our first kid, our daughter, and I was working at BLT Steak, and my wife was working for University of Phoenix. So her job at that time was to ensure that all the online curriculum was correct on their online profiles. Just uploading books and stuff like that, making sure it's all correct with the correct course. And, we talked and prayed about how we're going to move forward because it wasn't working out. Basically, she'd go to work at 6 a.m. and I would be with the baby till about close to 1. She'd get home around 12, 12:30, and we had to switch. So we didn't really see each other. I'd have to go to work till, 10, 11, and then I'm staying up till like 1 or 2 because I have to unwind.
Right.
And then she's already in bed, and then round and round we go, So we ended up, I had to pay off a little bit of debt, credit cards, so we sold like 2 cars. I fixed up an old truck I had, and I sold my little BMW wagon I had. It wasn't even a wagon, really. It was like a hatchback, but I bought a Honda wagon for my wife for our new baby. And life was good, though. I mean, she ended up leaving her job, and we tried to make it on our own. I wasn't making too much money as a cook per hour, And we lived in a condo in Phoenix, and the cost of living there is a little higher,
Yeah.
And we did that for about a year, and then we decided we wanted to either move to El Paso or move to Ohio, to Springfield, to just try and have family nearby that would help with babysitting. We had her grandmother who was in Payson, Arizona, which is a little bit further north of Phoenix, but really just friends, no other. I had family. I had family in Phoenix, but it was still difficult to just kind of manage all that. So I remember I applied for a few jobs in El Paso and a few in Springfield, or even Columbus, just surrounding area. In El Paso, I never got, I think I had one response that said no, but everybody else just didn't get back to me. I was like, at least give me a no, And I had a couple no's just in the area and the hotels in Columbus. And then I applied for this one particular job, which I didn't understand what it was. It said, so it ended up they were concert caterers. So they were called the Tour Cats. And they flew me out for an interview in Chicago. They bought my ticket, and I flew to Chicago to a Jimmy Buffett concert. So they were feeding Jimmy Buffett and his crew. And I interviewed there, and they hired me. And I moved. I had to give my notice at work in Arizona. And 10 days later, I was here.
Wow.
And then 2 days after that, I had to leave for Akron, which is where the home base was for the Tour Cats. And I was going on tour with George Strait, Reba McEntire, and
Wow.
Leanne Womack, which are country music stars at the time. And I had to feed them and their road crew.
What was
for
that
the
experience like, man?
That was pretty amazing. I did that for probably almost 2 months.
Wow.
I was the only guy that was married, had a kid. The rest of them were single. And partiers, and I was like, I'm kind of done with that part of my life, you know.
I'm done.
I mean, it was fun, you know, but I don't want to go back. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet Reba McEntire. You know, we're cooking for them, so there's a private room for them to eat, and you're not supposed to, you know, get all crazy like, or starstruck. You know, they're people too. They were very nice to us, and I got to see Jimmy Buffett and really meet him. He's like super focused on his music, but just on the country tour, like even George Strait, you know, I got to wave to him. He loved my barbecue sauce, but you can't get near George Strait. Like when he walks, he has these like 8 huge men.
Wow.
Like they would put football players to shame. And they're all wearing cowboy hats. I'm like, got these Ohio corn-fed boys walking around with him. Like they're just his bodyguard. He goes everywhere with them, and you can't really get close to him. So I'm like, I have his food. Can I just get around you?
I'm feeding him.
Yeah. So he would, George Strait would never come to him, and his wife Norma wouldn't come down to eat. They actually always ate in their bus, and we'd just deliver whatever they want. But yeah, that was fun. About 220 every day, 3 meals a day. Wow. Because as we're on tour, you're feeding the truckers, all the road crew guys. You know, George Strait has had the same road crew guys for the last 25 years. Wow. So you see all these older guys, you know, tuning guitars, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot he hasn't hired anybody since the 80s, you know. So that was a blast. It was really fun. Got to see a lot of different venues between the Carolinas and Louisiana. We were huge in Tennessee. You know, we go to Nashville, and I mean that's the country capital of the world. Mm-hmm. You know, and the venue there was, I mean, people go nuts, as they should. But it was just very cool. It was a great experience. But they actually let me go after right before the Trans-Siberian Orchestra tour. So it was right going into fall. I think that was 2000, I want to say 2010. Yeah, 2010, right when I had moved here.
What was there? I mean, they didn't want barbecue sauce no more, man? Or what?
They didn't give me a real reason. They just said, we're not going to need you on these upcoming tours. And I was like, okay, is there something I've done wrong? They're like, no, we just aren't going to need you on the staff. I was like, okay. And that hurt a little bit. That shook my faith a little, because I was like, I felt like, you know, we needed to move. If I could back up a little bit, actually, on that. When we were moving to Ohio, I had a condo that I had to sell, or rent, actually, and I had a car that I had to sell. And I felt like the Lord was definitely involved in that. Like we posted the condo for rent, and we had a nice couple an hour later call us and say, you know, we've been praying for months for this. It's exactly what we need. And just with my Honda Accord wagon, we had to sell it. And a couple from church, I remember they said that they wanted to buy it. And they're like, but, you know, God told me it's only going to be confirmed if it's going to be my favorite color. And she asked me, I was like, it's purple. She's like, yes, I want it. It was great. It was great. So, and then we moved. Okay. So, and then I did the touring and stuff for a couple months, and then let me go. And I was pretty devastated because I had just moved my family across the country. I'm like, now what do I do? You know, oh my gosh. So I think I was out of work for about 3 weeks, and which really isn't very long, but to me it was an eternity. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, has it been a year? You know. I just started looking for different jobs. I got hired at the Kingsgate Hotel in Cincinnati, so it's also a Marriott, and I was kind of going back to Marriott. You know, I had been Marriott before. I told them that in the interview, and you know, they found me in their system and stuff from Arizona. I did that for a year because we were going to move to Cincinnati. We were living in Springfield, so I commuted for a year, about an hour and a half one way, which was really hard. Wow, that was tough, but. In that time, also my wife got pregnant with our second, who was a boy, I was told. And that is Ezekiel James, the older girl. Her name is Avela Marie. Wow. Avela means God is my strength in Jewish culture. Yeah. So had a baby boy, but I left that job and got a job at the Holiday Inn in Fairborn as the executive sous chef. So learned a lot about banquets. Got really close to Mark Boroff. He was the chef at the time there, and I still talk to him. You know, it's been years, but we got really close. I was there for probably 2 years, and then I got promoted to a hotel in Cincinnati.
So you're back to Cincinnati.
So I was like back in Cincinnati. So the group of guys was Weingartner and Hammonds was the management company that I worked for. So I was at the Holiday Inn under them, and then 2 years I did a good job. So they promoted me to executive chef at their DoubleTree property in Cincinnati. So I did that for probably about a year also, and we decided, I was like, we're not going to move to Cincinnati. I didn't feel like that was right. So I was making like 50 plus a year, and I had Sundays and Mondays off. That's the cushiest chef job you'll ever get. Benefits, Yeah. I still cooked and did stuff, but it was a lot of money management, running a business. And I knew I had always wanted to do something on our own, but I didn't want to do a freestanding restaurant yet. I didn't feel like that was really the right time. And I kind of prayed about it, and we had thought about it, and I felt like at the time I was really following Mercy Chefs. So if you've ever heard of them, they are the people that are dispatched when there's natural disasters, tornadoes, floods, within the country, I'm sorry. So they have like 3 giant food trucks because they can feed a state during these times. So I really wanted to do that or some kind of thing like that. And I thought, God, if I could just help people in a disaster situation. And I remember looking, and for about a year, we talked about the name first as I was working in the hotel. And I wanted to do something with the painted desert. At one time, we thought Desert Eats would be but it sounded sandy, like, nobody's going to eat there. So we came up with the painted pepper. I remember drawing the logo, and I had some friends that were typesetters, and we took it to them, and they designed the logo. And I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. And I felt like God wanted me to help people with the disaster in their life. Wow. It wasn't the way I thought it was. Like, I just had this thought of, like, disasters, what I want to help relief. And it's like, why don't you go around and help whatever they're going through? That's a disaster to them. Right. And that's just kind of how we got started. After a year, I went to a couple, Fellowship used to do Fellowship Business Network, FBN meetings. I remember going to a couple of those. I had business cards and a shirt. That was it. I was like talking about, I'm going to have this, great business. We're going to do Southwest food. I didn't have a menu. I didn't know what I was doing. And I really started to just pray through that and ask what I should do. And I was thinking about what my grandmother used to make sometimes. So we would have like Texas caviar with chips, and that Texas caviar mix is like corn, black beans, red onion, roasted red peppers, and I started putting that on the menu. I was going to put that in a quesadilla, and I knew I would make my own salsa. I knew I could do tacos. I love fish tacos, and they're not very common in this area at the time. So I was kind of banking on that. I was like, maybe we'll do well, And then I remember having a salad. I did like a chicken salad with a jalapeno ranch, or chicken on a bed of greens with jalapeno ranch. And I had thought of fried chips with cinnamon sugar, like that's our dessert chips. And the corn cakes that we have now were kind of premature. That's kind of my recipe. I had done research, and I found all these recipes for arepas, which you stuff with meat and all these other things. I'm like, nobody's doing like savory pancakes. I can do that, And I remember we found a trailer for sale in, I think it was Arcanum, just north of Cleveland. And I think he wanted like $12,000 for it. I was like, it's a little high. It's not, you're starting a business. That's nothing. And I waited. He got down to 10, and then we called them, talked to him, and we drove up there. I had 2 kids at the time, and then my third, Helena, was born in June 1st, 2013. And we ended up taking 2 and a little baby up there. After my shift in Cincinnati, we drove to Cleveland. Wow. And got there, very nice older couple, and the guy had a meat shop, and he was just showcasing. He would grill his sausages and showcase his meat that he had at a shop. That's all he was using it for. And I got them down. I think we bought it for like $9,500, and it had two fryers, a flat top grill, and a fridge, and a counter, and a triple sink. I was like, that's a pretty good deal. It's got all the stuff I need. So yeah, I took a loan from a family member that was willing to finance us, and I brought it home.
Wow.
It was a red trailer, and I had little propane tanks, that you use for your grill at home or whatever, and had 2 of those. And I bought a couple of those, and then I just started. I got a health inspection, got it cleaned up. It was pretty clean when I bought it, and I had no idea what I was doing. Got the license, and I think our first gig was at Fellowship Church. I remember Chris Hartford was playing out in the parking lot, and we were the food, and it was a concert. I think it was a Jason Gray concert. He was coming to town, and I got slammed. I had a huge line. We had chalkboard written menu. My wife was there. I think we had made some tamales, too, which ran out very quickly. But I was like, it was exhilarating. It was so fun.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was a blast.
What were your so now you got a wife, you got 2 kids, man. You on starting your own business with your food truck, going into an entrepreneur. Are you the first entrepreneur in your family?
I believe so. Yeah.
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 What were the challenges, man? I know there's a lot of challenges of being an entrepreneur. I know that for firsthand.
Yeah.
But for you, man, in that world, what was your what was your your challenge, man?
I would say initially starting up, probably a lot of fear. I don't know if anybody's going to buy this.
Yeah.
And I did, at first, I did leave my job, my hotel job, which was guaranteed income, to start a trailer. And I had a little bit of negativity, from a couple GM, general managers, just telling me, like, there's no market for that. And just so you know, I hope you do well, but just nobody's doing that. And there was probably only there's maybe like 4 or 5 food trucks in Dayton at the time. And then I think Ramen Rickshaw had just started right before me. Corgi had started maybe a couple months before me. So there was not it was not a popular thing in the area yet. And so I was scared. There was a lot of fear, like, what if nobody comes? Mm-hmm. The food has to be excellent because they're paying for it. But I don't know. What if they don't like it? I had never done anything like this in this area, where, like, coming from the Southwest, like, they're all over the place, or this food is available all the time.
So it's normal.
It's fairly normal.
But it's new in this.
Yeah,
area,
we're here. I'm like, there's a couple Mexican places. There was restaurants here, but I'm like, I don't know. And this is a new thing. But I really kind of banked on that. And, my first real gig after the church was at the fairgrounds. I remember we did a swap meet, a car swap meet or something. I paid an outrageous amount for the spot, and we paid for electric and all this stuff. We thought we were going to do a few $1,000s, on the weekend. It was 2 days. And I ended up losing money. I had spent like $1,200 on all this food, and, borrowed some money for some of this stuff and drinks. And the drinks really helped us. We sold a lot of drinks, but it was odd. Nobody knew what, like, I was selling jalapeno poppers, and nobody knew what those were.
Wow.
Which was strange to me. Most people knew what a quesadilla was. I ended up changing the menu the next day. I was just putting burritos on, and everybody knew what a burrito was. So I did that. We lost money. It was pretty discouraging. But then I went back and got back out there. I did the antique swap meet that always happens at the fairgrounds. Mm-hmm. I was across the street at the antique mall, selling a couple items, maybe 4 or 5 items. And we did pretty well for lunch. I remember being there from like 11 to 5 or something like that. And we did really well, and that was encouraging. So the challenges really was my own fear, and then just establishing that customer base. That takes time. We really got well known probably after about 1.5 years, and no one would buy fish tacos.
You know what, man? I don't remember I don't even remember the first time I've had
Yeah.
the painted pepper. I know it was at an event somewhere,
Yeah.
and I had a food truck, and I loved it, man. But to this day, man, I still haven't had the fish tacos.
Yeah. And that's okay.
I'll have to try it, man.
But
'Cause
most
you're
people are
talking
like,
about all this food, man.
yeah.
I'm making me hungry, man. We should have brought lunch or
Because
something.
most people are like, why would you put fish in a taco? And I'm like,
It sounds
because it's
good.
delicious.
I just
You know.
I got to get the courage to try fish tacos.
Yeah.
I just never had it.
Yeah, and I remember a couple people from City Hall bought them for lunch when I used to park where the new like apartment condos are being
Yeah.
built now. That was like food truck alley is what we called it, and I'd go out there on Wednesday or Thursday lunch and just park and hope for the best. And people would come over and have lunch, and that got to be pretty popular.
Yeah.
And then me and Ramen Rickshaw would go out there together. Got pretty close to Corgi, and we would share different business ideas
Wow.
and not necessarily secrets, just, this is what I learned. Hey, what did you learn? You
Yeah.
know? And it just kind of grew from there. And we started gaining some popularity, and I did the food truck for probably 6 years. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. The hardest thing. But man, so much fun. I had a great time. Met a lot of people. Between driving to Dayton, I would do private stuff. I did graduations. I did a couple wedding receptions because weddings had changed. People not necessarily all wanted to go to a food hall or a hotel and pick, fish, prime rib, or vegetarian.
Yeah.
Which is nothing wrong with that. It has its place. But a lot of people we're switching to like reception, just kind of mingle.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get some tacos. I'm gonna grab a beer. Hey, I haven't seen you in like 10 years, And that was fun. That was a blast. And I did that for 6 years, and then an opportunity came up where Cohatch had approached us about potentially putting a location in. I was like, I don't know. I guess it's probably time.
Yeah.
Still not a freestanding. I didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to spend the money on that. So it's quite a bit undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed the food truck. It's low overhead. I contract my employees.
Right.
And I again, there was still a little bit of an element of fear, even though now we had, 6 years later, we had a great reputation for food. We're great to work with. I will do the best I can. The only thing I can't make is wedding cake.
Really.
That's it. I can make pretty much anything else.
Really.
Yeah. I don't know why I struggle with it. I've tried. I've failed.
How many times have you tried?
A few.
Wow.
Practice. Like, not for someone's, I haven't accepted anything and been like, I can do it. I just can't do it.
Wedding cake. Wow. What's the difference in wedding cake? And
I think it's more up here.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't want to mess it up. And I've in working in hotels, I've made food for hundreds of weddings, buffets, pork, steak, whatever. And that's all been executed well, but I don't know, I can't do the cake.
Yeah, you can't
But I
mess
can
up
make
a wedding.
cookies and cheesecake. And it'll take me forever. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. Either you do like hot food and this is what you do, or you're, to me, a scientist and you do baking, and because
Right.
everything has to be exact. I'm more of an improviser, a little more salt, little, flavor. But yeah, so we did that for 6 years, and then let's see, we've been in Cohatch for 2 years, but backing up to that, it was a little scary at first because this is a 100-year-old building that has to be updated, to today's codes and stuff, and it took them some time. And then COVID hit, in March of 20. I remember, Trump announcing the beginning of the pandemic, and there was a lot of stuff happening. And I remember the city started to let food trucks go into neighborhoods, which wasn't really allowed before. So I couldn't get a job, for a few months, and then, I'm opening a restaurant. Sorry, I have to leave. So we were kind of stuck. So I would do food truck events, and then I started going into neighborhoods. And it's probably the best start to our food truck year ever. People were generous, more than usual. And I would take as much food as I could, but I'd still run out sometimes.
Wow.
And that was usually in the Ridgewood area. We were doing that for a while. And that, the other thing that I love about Springfield is we were supported. The community really came out and helped us out, because we had to do that for a few months, because even the contractors at that were building our space and Cohatch, constructing all that. They quarantined for probably about a month to 6 weeks, and which is fine, but we lost time, so we finally, and then DeWine talked about shutting down restaurants and everything, and that was like, man,
Wow.
you're going to bury us, So we ended up opening in June. It was like a soft opening, the end of May into June. In June, we really officially opened of 2020, and it was packed. Everyone wanted to see the new Cohatch, and then business was good for a little while, maybe for that month, and then DeWine had announced the requirement of face coverings and masks, and that hurt us, unfortunately. And he had already done some closing of bars and restaurants, so like we had to close by 10 o'clock, I think, because bars were closing, things like that. They didn't want people hanging out after, which affected us not as negatively as before, or after, I'm sorry, when they started requiring face coverings. A lot of people, the traffic just went down, and we were trying to depend on to-go, and I was doing more food truck events even just to cover payroll, because now I had a payroll of people I had to cover. We have rent, lights are on, all that stuff, and that was hard. That was really hard, but we survived. We've survived the virus so far.
Yeah,
thank God.
Thank God, man, because I do. It's just amazing to see the progression, man. You go from the food truck, now you have your own place at the Cohatch, which I eat there quite often. I think I got a $5 coupon, man, that I haven't used yet.
Yeah,
I think it's in my wallet, man. I think I may.
And just even with opening the Painted Pepper restaurant, if you've been there and walked up, we have a counter in the front, and then on the side, that's the first year of my wife's concept, which is called Cork and Board, where we do some charcuterie, some cheeses, and then we have like low intervention wine, which is great. Not stuff you can find in the grocery store. It's a little better for you, not as many sulfites added, stuff like that, and we offer that too, which is awesome. We've had a really good time so far in these last 2 years. I've had a great staff that I've gotten very close to. I've had a couple people come and go, but mostly have the same staff. They've gone on to other things. I tell all my staff, I'm like, I want you to come here, learn some things, and then you need to leave and do better than me.
Wow.
Because I want you to grow.
Wow.
I'm not going to be the guy that, I don't own you. Your life is not mine.
Yeah.
I want you to go out and do better than I did.
Wow,
So.
That's amazing, man. We can wrap up here in a few minutes, but I do remember you said you have 4 kids, so you stopped at 3. So there has to be another one.
Nobody is an accident, okay, Aaron? But there was we weren't expecting maybe the last one, Roman, baby Roman. He was born in 2015, and he just turned 7 on April 10th.
Wow.
And there's some major accomplishments and milestones once they can put their car seat on, once they can do their own thing. So like we've switched to a different phase of life as of pretty much probably last year, a couple years even, where the older ones kind of even watch out for him, take care of him, and it's great. So just one more thing, just as we're talking about children and stuff, I did have, we had 5 kids. My wife got pregnant again in 2017 with our 5th child, who was going to be a little boy. We were really excited. Kind of also just unexpected, but wonderful. And I remember we had a midwife come over. I was working locally here, and she couldn't find the heartbeat. And I remember having to come home. We went to the hospital in Dayton, not Children's. It was where they have like I want to say early beginnings. I'm sorry, the
Family beginnings.
Family beginnings.
Yep.
So that area, and we went to an emergency part of the kind of pregnancy unit, and had like 2 or 3 doctors come and confirm that the baby's heart had stopped, that he had passed away inside my wife, which was really hard. And God, we were devastated. I mean, it was really tough time because she still had to give birth, unfortunately, and he had passed. So we came to Springfield Regional, and he was born a couple days later. My mom was in town because she's come to all the births, and so instead of that, we attended a funeral. We had him cremated. A baby boy, we named him Titus, Titus Andrew, and had that happen. That was really hard, and I remember being pretty angry with God. You know, like, why would you do this to me? This isn't, being faithful and thinking that, I'm not completely protected from some of the things of the world too. That's probably a little naive on my part, where I see him more as navigating us through it. But that was really difficult, and I remember being in the shower one day and just being pretty upset at God, and just trying to talk to him and be like, hey, what, why would you do this, all this, and I remember him saying, like, I wept with you. Wow. I lost a son too.
Wow.
Oh, that was powerful.
Wow.
Powerful, man. It was good to hear, though.
Wow.
But I really grew out of that. That was hard.
Wow.
To hear. So.
How did that your wife? I mean, because she still had to give birth.
Yeah, she still had to give birth, and that was so hard. It probably didn't affect her at first. It was kind of like we were just trying to live life a little bit, and it would, like me, it would hit her at different parts of our life. Like I remember being at work. I used to work for Wooded Glen here locally, also nursing home. And I'd be like kind of stressed at breakfast, trying to get everything out, and it would just hit me. And I'd be like overwhelmed and bawling and stuff and really upset. And that would happen to her too. And I wouldn't say it's gotten, even now, I can talk about it and it hasn't gotten better, but I would say it's changed. It's definitely changed. And like we kind of talked about before, because of that experience, I could share it with other people that had lost a child, or it was fresh for them, or they knew someone, and like, hey man, this happened to me too. I know exactly how you feel. I really do.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for sharing it.
But yeah, I have 4 children now, so we always joke like we've gone through 2 states, 4 children. We have 2 businesses now.
Yeah, man.
And we just, we have a lot going on.
That's a lot, man. But you guys are still thriving, man. How do you see the dynamic in your kids? Are they close as you and your siblings were, or how do you see that?
They're very close. I can tell as they're growing up. There's still a bit of that sibling rivalry, a little bit. But they're going to be very close. They're close now. The older girl, Avela, she'll once in a while, almost every day actually, she picks up Roman, just squeezes him, tells him that she loves him.
Wow.
And I love that.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
As a father, what's your biggest concern, man, for your children? I know fathers we have many of them, but
there's quite a few. Probably just growing up in this culture and world right now, because there's not some great stuff out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of division, unfortunately, and I don't teach that. We do the best we can to answer questions, even anything from culture to faith to anything, but probably I don't want them to see that and think or see the world in a bad way.
Right.
It is really a wonderful place. I think we're maybe going through a rough patch, but I think it's good still. So just one of my concerns would be just them seeing that, and nobody really has an answer for it, but I want to guide them through it. But I just want them to still love people, no matter what. That's hard.
Yeah, that could be challenging, but we're commanded to do so.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your heart, man. I appreciate just an amazing story, just sharing with us, man. And I do have one final question.
Sure.
Man. do your kids and wife, your family, do they love your cooking?
Love is a strong word. I would say they are amazed by it. No, they do. They love everything I make. And what's funny, Aaron, is I don't like to cook that often because I do it all day
All
long.
the day,
you know?
yeah, I feel you.
And sometimes I get like a flare of inspiration, where I'm like, I watch a show or something, I'm like, I can do that better. Or I'm like, in Cohatch we have TVs, and somebody will be making something. I'm like, I can do that better than that guy. But yeah, they love what we do, and we do simple stuff sometimes. And sometimes I'm like, I'm better basting salmon and making green beans with almonds. And all right, kids, this is it's for dinner. And,
Green beans with almonds.
Oh yeah, or are you doing with hazelnuts or macadamia?
With green
Macadamia
beans?
is expensive though. Yeah,
Really?
little salt and pepper, butter.
You see,
cook
man.
them. Oh,
I
man.
know I said I have the final question, man, but I'm gonna get one more. But because it's amazing, bro. Because, and I asked that question, man, because sometimes, man, your family is different than the world. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
man, Louie can cook. That's amazing. And then you
Yeah.
go home and they're like, man, Daddy, no, I'd rather do
No.
pizza. I don't like,
Yeah.
So that's why I asked that question. But as a chef, man,
Yeah.
eating at other restaurants, and you don't have to mention the restaurants' names, but
Sure.
you go eat at other restaurants and you say, this is terrible. I should have just cooked myself.
It's hard to eat at other places, because nobody knows who you are a lot of times.
Right.
Which is fine. I'm not expecting special treatment. It should be amazing all the time.
Right.
That's what consistency is.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll have stuff come out and I'm like, oh, it's overcooked, or the sauce is broken, or I just recognize things, or are you gonna answer the phone faster than that? Or are you gonna there's just the business mind and food part I just can't turn off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it's just hard sometimes, but I try to go in with just an open mind on that, a blank slate, because I try not to act like I'm better than you or anything.
No.
Just it's hard though, because professionally I'm like,
This is what you do,
I
though.
could make this better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think is judge, or it's different, man.
Yeah.
It's hard when you are constantly cooking every day, and you have your own restaurant to go into another space, man. It's hard to shut that part off.
It is, because we do Southwest food, but I was French trained, and I've cooked a lot of different type of cuisines and proteins and a lot of stuff. It's like I know we can do better.
It's
You know?
I feel you, man. My world is not food, although I eat it. But my world is in music and stuff, man.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do the same thing, man. Like listening to, artists or something like that, man. And I'm like, man, I probably would have did that hook a different way, or
Right.
man, probably would. And people probably do that to my music, but it's hard to shut that off.
Yeah.
It really is, man. But it was just interesting, man. To us, man, we probably look at a dish and be like, man, this is amazing. And you're like, man, that was horrible.
Yeah. There's been a couple places I've been with friends where they're like, oh, it was so good. And I'm like, it was okay. Like, it's all right.
Good deal, man. Louie, I appreciate you, man,
Yeah.
sitting down, man, and sharing your story and your life, man. It's amazing, man, how God has brought you and your family thus far, man. And we appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
No problem, man.
Thanks.